Here we are again today, my friends. Thanks for joining us on our journey through the Bible. Our scripture reading for today was in John chapter 11 and chapter 12. And I have a few thoughts about the subject of who is in charge here anyway. You may have heard the rumor going around that there's an election taking place. Um, but when the ballots are counted in this election, and however long that takes, by the way, and winners are declared, that's the question that always remains. Who's in charge here? The Bible makes it clear that God is always in control of events going on this earth. Now, as you read chapter 11 in John, Lazarus had been raised from the dead, and some people believed in Jesus, and some people hated him even more. And that meant for the enemies of Jesus, it's time to have a meeting. We need to do something about this. And that's what you see taking place in John 11:47 and 48. It says the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered together, the council, and said, "What do we? For this man doeth many miracles, and if we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and our nation." And so, because of all the miracles Jesus was doing, the fact that so many people were believing in him, the time had come to just do away with Jesus once and for all. These people were so worried that many would believe in Jesus to such an extent that the Romans would respond by attacking their nation and, of course, removing them from power. Well, in the middle of this meeting, the high priest, Caiaphas, stood up to speak. Now, Caiaphas was a man who had an intense hatred of Jesus. Later, we read that before Jesus was crucified, he had Jesus blindfolded and beaten, and then he mocked Jesus, saying, "If you're a prophet, tell us who's hitting you." Well, in verse 49 and 50, this is what the high priest had to say. He said, "You know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, that the whole nation perish not." He thought he had an original idea, but actually, that had been God's plan from day one. Little did he know that what he was talking about was already something that God had in mind. In the book of Revelation, Jesus is called the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Now, here's a man who absolutely hated Jesus. He was not on God's side. And yet, God took his own evil intentions and twisted them to do exactly what he intended to do. In fact, God took his very words and turned them into a prophecy. Yes, Jesus would die to save the people, but not from the Romans, and not just the nation of Israel, but anyone who would place their faith in him would be saved from their sins. Now, no one at the meeting knew it, no one understood it, but God took the words and the plans of these evil men and used them to do exactly what he intended to do. You see, this is what we mean when we say that God is in control of the plans that men devise. And the same thing is true in our election. We may or may not like the results, but we do know that God is in control. A.W. Tozer once said that the sovereignty of God is like a ship that leaves New York and is headed for Liverpool in England. That ship has a predetermined course and a predetermined destination. Now, the people who are on board that ship may rise when they choose to rise. They may sleep when they choose to sleep. They may eat what they choose and when they choose. They may walk about and make any number of decisions. They have free will. And yet, all the while, that ship is headed for its destination. It's following a predetermined course. Maybe you could look at it this way. You know, recently the Buckeyes, the number 4 football team in the country, played Penn State, the number 3 team in the country. And of course, as we all expected, the Buckeyes won that match. But suppose the coach of the Penn State team was calling the plays that his team would run, which of course he was, but he also had the power to control the plays that the Buckeyes would run as well. I think that would have had a different outcome, don't you? In fact, they could have had a rematch 100 times, and his team would always win. The history of our world is a little like that. Some people love the Lord, And some people are working for the devil, but the same Lord is in charge of which side wins. The outcome is always in his hands. I know politicians always think they're the ones in charge. They've got the power, but they only have what small power our sovereign Lord allows. As we wrap this up, I love the way Psalm 2 puts it. Let that be in your mind today. Describes it this way: why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth do set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, and the Lord shall have them in derision. Stay in the Word, my friends. Our reading for tomorrow takes us into the upper room. We're reading from John chapter 13 to chapter 16. I'll be reading there, and I'll see you again very soon.